Welcome to the first Doctor Who review here on Reverse to Polarity Media, where today I'm going to be talking about a newly released Big Finish audio called Ravagers. Now, the reason why this is a particularly special release is because it features the return of Christopher Eccleston to Doctor Who. Now, those words I'd never thought I'd hear for years, but it's an absolute joy to be able to not just say them, but actually experience Big Finish recreate the Ninth Doctor along with Christopher Eccleston's magnificent performance. So throughout the course of this review I'll talk about firstly whether it's worth getting, whether it's a good one, but also why this is such a big deal for Doctor Who fans, and then later on I'll come down a bit more to what I think about the audio overall. So first of all, it's a 3-episode story comprising of Sphere of Freedom, Cataclysm and Food Fight, all written by Nicholas Briggs. And first of all then, is it worth adding to your collection? Well, in my view, absolutely. Particularly if you're a fan of the Ninth Doctor, of Doctor Who and of Christopher Eccleston. But in my view, it's also a really fun audio to listen to. I know some people are big fans of perhaps the later episodes of the Ninth Doctor where it gets more intense and there's more a massive undercurrent about the fictional drama behind the Time War written by Russell T Davies. But I think it's a fantastic chance to unwind and enjoy 2 hours of a fun and enjoyable, fresh, exciting new Doctor Who on audio. And Christopher Eccleston, what can I say that hasn't been said, but his performance, it's like he never went away. It's hard to believe it's been nearly 16 years since he first took on the role of the Doctor. He just slips back into that breathless, exciting performance that just brings you right there, right in the scene. And Nicholas Briggs has the foresight to kind of really bring him to the fore straight away, because he is really the main attraction of this piece. It's a chance to kind of just jump right back into that world of 2005 with his Doctor and his characterisation. I just remember the day when it was first announced. It just put a massive smile on my face. So should you get it? Absolutely, because it's fun, it's enjoyable, and who doesn't want to hear more of Christopher Eccleston, really? So I recommend it for most people's Doctor Who collections in a heartbeat. So first of all then, why is this so important to Doctor Who fans? Well, Christopher Eccleston, his one series of being in the TV version of Doctor Who in 2005 was almost a perfect one series arc where Russell T Davies wrote both his introduction but also his relationship with Rose the companion, but also this whole internal emotional change that was going on underneath the Ninth Doctor's character, about the trauma, about him being a survivor of the much written about time war between the Time Lords and the Daleks, but also just you had the feeling that the Ninth Doctor was trying to reclaim his inner soul, reaffirming himself as an explorer, just righting wrongs across time and space. And for me, certainly, Series 1, as it's sometimes called, is a massive part of my formative Doctor Who fanhood. Even though I was a Doctor Who fan for many years before then, I grew up in a time when Doctor Who wasn't on the telly, or at least not on a regular basis. It had already been suspended in 1989, and clearly the BBC wanted to axe it, but I didn't know that at that point because I was only 2 or 3 years old at the time. So my first experience of Doctor Who was actually the 30th anniversary. Now, for many years I'd actually forgotten about Dimensions in Time, which I did watch at the time, but I kind of erased that from my memory. But I remember Doctor Who for the first time watching that exciting epic repeat of Planet of the Daleks starring Jon Pertwee, and Jon Pertwee became has become my favourite Doctor of all time, but also he kind of introduced me to the whole show, not just via Planet of the Daleks, but the first VHS I ever owned, The Time Warrior, and also The Ghost of N-Space, which was probably the only brand new Doctor Who happening prior to the TV movie. And then, of course, the TV movie brought Doctor Who back briefly, and we had Sylvester McCoy and Paul McGann. And then also we had, running parallel to this, we had UK Gold broadcasting numerous repeats of the classic series of Doctor Who, which kind of was all happening at the same time. So when I was growing up with Doctor Who, when I first encountered Doctor Who in '93, and then more regularly with UK Gold from 1995 onwards, I didn't have a particular one Doctor. I kind of had to accept all of the first 7 straight off the bat as existing. So it didn't really feel that many of them belonged to me, in the same sense that some people feel Tom Baker is their Doctor, John Pertwee and David Tennant and so on. But I did have a connection to some of the later Doctors. John Pertwee, of course, because he was one of the first, but also Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, and then Paul McGann, because they were the newer Doctors. Sylvester, particularly because he was kind of the incumbent Doctor at that period, so all the merchandise was about him, all the mass media. So essentially, Sylvester became one of my Doctors, so I almost had a collection of Doctors as my Doctor. And Paul McGann was the first one that I'd saw brand new as live on transmission, but because it was only one episode, I didn't really forge that massive emotional connection that many people do with their first live Doctors. So for me, the return of Doctor Who in 2005 was a massive deal. I may have been 18 at the time that it was broadcast, but it still felt a really big deal for me. Even though, looking back in hindsight, there's the odd early episode here or there which perhaps isn't quite as good now, at the time I just lapped it all up. It was so fresh, it was so breathless, it was so unlike anything I'd ever imagined before, and that's partly credit to Russell T Davies's writing, his realism, his humanity, but also just the wonderful performance of Christopher Eccleston. I keep coming back to that because that is definitely one of my favourite things about new Doctor Who. Just having Christopher Eccleston in the Doctor Who universe has been a massive gift to all Whovians everywhere, in my opinion. And I already admired him as an actor beforehand because I was 18, I'd already watched numerous detective dramas, one of them of course being Cracker, which he is amazing in that. Again, if you haven't watched much Christopher Eccleston TV work, I heavily recommend watching Cracker, also with Robbie Coltrane. But I digress really, but that year, 2005, just watching it as it became live just felt so special, even to an 18-year-old, even to someone who's technically a bit older than perhaps the age that was being pitched at on screen. But it just felt amazing. I mean, I was working at the same time, but I used to taking 10 minutes of it while I was at work, just catching Christopher Eccleston come on the TV halfway through an episode. I rewatched it properly afterwards because I was recording it, but even so, I was excited the whole year round, and every week it just builds and builds and builds until the finale. And I'd never felt anything like that before. The oncoming of the parting of the waves and the publicity, and it just felt not just that this was my Doctor Who come back. It just felt euphoric that I was actually watching at the same time as the general public, that they liked it too. Vindication of how brilliant Doctor Who was, that this brand new series with Christopher Eccleston was being received so well, and the fact that it was just so damn good television. It really was. We really take it for granted now, but some of those episodes in that first year still stand up as some of the greatest of the last 20 years, in fact some of the greatest of the last 60 years of Doctor Who. So those will always bring back great fond memories, and I always love those episodes with all my heart. Which brings me back to why Christopher Eccleston coming back was so important, because his sudden departure after Series 1 I won't get into the behind the scenes backstory because that's other people's business as far as I'm concerned. But it felt like, yes, his story had been told, but it felt so much that we were losing something. I mean, to his credit, he's always loved fans and supported fans for all those years in between. But really, this is the first time that Christopher Eccleston has returned to playing the character as it was, as the Ninth Doctor. And boy, have I missed him so much. And this is why I enjoy listening to this so much, because it's such a joy listening to him replay the character after all these years. And then we come to the actual merits of the audio itself. Now, what helps this be so good is that Nicholas Briggs makes the dialogue for the Doctor really snappy, really practical, pragmatic, just like Russell T Davies on screen. So in that sense, it doesn't feel any different at all, and I hugely praise Nicholas Briggs for kind of maintaining that feel of the Ninth Doctor. But then we come to the story itself. Now, I know some fans will be expecting some kind of big exploration of the Time War and the Doctor's traumatic emotions, just like in the TV series. But in a way, I think they've missed the point, because after so long away, I'm not sure that's really what we needed at this point. I think after so long away, all we really needed was a fun dive back into the world of the Ninth Doctor to remind us why we loved him so much, and just a fun adventure for us to reacquaint ourselves with him, really. And that's exactly what Ravagers is. Yeah, there are hints of references to the Time War and Gallifrey in there, but otherwise it's a really fun and really kind of nice and neat little one-off 3-part story. You could probably even start listening to this without any information about Doctor Who, period. It's really a great jumping on point. That helps contribute to the kind of freshness of it as well, because they bring in a great brand new companion, Nova, who I must admit, after all these years, it's really hard to make new companions that are really new and really great straight from the off. But I think Big Finish have really got it off to a T now, because Nova is probably one of the best I've heard in a while. But having said that, Nicholas Briggs and the Big Finish team have made some great companions over the years. There's Liv, there's also Helen, a bit further back Lucy Miller, and Nova falls into that kind of down-to-earth, natural, everyday person mould, because even though she exists in a sci-fi setting, her story is very relatable, and it makes it so easy for her to like, and the performances are all wonderful as well. Now, I don't want to give too much away about the actual plot, but suffice to say, this is an interesting story told through the lens of time travel, in the sense that the narrative doesn't always follow a linear pattern. You get a bit of jumping ahead and a bit of jumping back, and that's something that Nicholas Briggs has been very good at as well, and I think this is far superior to many other new Doctor reintroductions to audio because of that. I certainly think it's far superior to Destination Nerva when Tom Baker first came back to Big Finish. Actually, I'd say it's on a par with exciting as when Paul McGann first appeared with Storm Warning back in 2000. But despite all the time travel shenanigans and the clever jumps in narrative, I would say that actually it's quite a really straightforward story overall, and that makes it, again, really accessible, really fun, but also it means I don't think anyone's ever going to call this their absolute favourite, but despite that, I don't think that's what we really wanted at this point. We didn't want anything that was super dense, super complex, super clever in terms of development. We want to build up to that, really. So this, again, I can't repeat this often enough, this is a wonderful jumping on point for fresh listeners, even for old listeners who are just diving into the Ninth Doctor. This is a great reintroduction to him. I've pretty much already covered the performances, but Christopher Eccleston, I mean, I've already said how wonderful he is in this, as he has been throughout the TV series. He instantly jumps back into the role. And then Camilla B. put as Nova, again, wonderful performance. Great casting by Big Finish. And I think she's going to be a wonderful companion in the years to come. Really throws herself into the world of Doctor Who. The production, equally impressive. The music, there's some really great moments of music by Howard Carter. And the sound design by Ian Meadows, I think, is one of the most complex sound designs I've heard on Big Finish for a long time. In fact, there's so much going on. It really transports you. And in a way, it kind of took me by surprise, all the bells and whistles that have been thrown into this. So great kudos to everyone involved. I'm not sure there's much I can use to compare Ravagers with, but I suppose I would call it a 21st century version of The Chase, in the sense that it doesn't have a dense narrative, but it does have a very active plot. So the characters are all jumping around from place to place, and it's very fun, but I would probably dare to suggest that The Ravagers is probably better than The Chase in terms of acting and writing is concerned. Equally as entertaining, as equally full of fun character interactions. I guess what I can mention is the fact how the contrast between the Romans and 1950s soldiers all play into the mix across the episodes. That's fun to see all played out. And at the end, it feels like we're on the beginning of a huge string of wonderful adventures ahead, and who knows where we're going to go next. So overall, I would probably score about 7.5 out of 10. But I should also add an extra thank you to Nicholas Briggs and Jason Haig Ellery and everyone else at Big Finish for working hard to help make this happen and to get Christopher Eccleston back in Doctor Who again. Thanks for watching, and if you like what you hear, then please like and subscribe, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. You can also read up on my written review of this audio on my blog website, Reverse the Polarity Media's Doctor Who Review, or type in RTP Films-Doctor Who Review.blogspot.com.